During the month of June, we're looking at the plight of persecuted Christians around the world. Today, we're focusing on Africa's largest nation, the Sudan. In no other country has the persecution of believers been as severe.
The following contains some graphic scenes. Parental discretion is advised. The conflict in Sudan boils down to this. A radical Islamic regime in the Arab north has been waging jihad against the mostly Christian south. Oil companies from other countries, including Canada, China, and Malaysia, are indirectly helping to fund this holy war. So far, nearly 2 million people, mostly Christians, have been killed for their faith in Sudan since 1983, and the genocide is far from over.
The persecution that's taking place in Sudan today really has to be among the most horrific persecution occurring in the world.
Brad Phillips is director of the Persecution Project based in the Washington, D.C. area. He was the driving force behind a new documentary entitled Sudan, the Hidden Holocaust.
Most of us are really ignorant about what's taking place with regard to our brothers and sisters in Sudan who are being persecuted. So we decided to do Sudan, the Hidden Holocaust, so that we could create a tool for the church.
Here are some scenes from Sudan, the Hidden Holocaust.
Christian children are coerced and even abducted into Islamic schools where they are re-educated.
They are forced inside to be educated in Arabic language and also Islamized. So they refuse this.
I want to go to a normal school. Why? Because then I'll be able to have holidays and see my family. Why was the boy we interviewed in chains? Because he escaped. He didn't want to stay and learn the Quran. We have so many who remain in chains until they've learned all of the Quran. They must give up playing. Playing is harmful. It does not allow them time to study. Anyone who misbehaves, he is whipped so that he doesn't play anymore.
One of the many facets of the persecution against Christians in Sudan is slavery.
There are tens of thousands of slaves in Sudan, tens of thousands of women and children who are treated in the most brutal fashion like beasts in the field.
Dr. Charles Jacobs heads the American Anti-Slavery Group based in the Boston area.
And for us to sit here in the land of Abraham Lincoln and the land of freedom and the land that we almost tore apart over the issue of one man owning another, for us not to raise a hand and at least for the president not to say the word slavery, we feel is wrong.
To fight the Sudanese slave trade, the Swiss-based organization Christian Solidarity International has been involved in a slave redemption program. John Eibner of Christian Solidarity International.
The armed forces of the government of Sudan they usually strike early in the morning before a village, the village is up and about, and they burn the villages. They tend to shoot the able-bodied men when they come across them. They'll round up the women and children, tie them to long ropes and force them to march northwards. On the way to the north, and this journey takes several days, many of the, especially children, die of thirst and starvation. The women are gang raped at night. It's a living hell for them.
Hans Stuckelberger is the founder and director of Christian Solidarity International.
We have now redeemed over 25,000 slaves.
As word has gotten out about the possibility of freeing the slaves at about $50 per slave, many Americans have responded generously.
Shelby, how do you think these little things work?
The Eicher children from the Los Angeles area decided to hold a garage sale in order to free slaves.
We're raising money to help free the slaves. Well, we donated our own toys, and we wanted to help free slaves in Sudan because we didn't think it was fair how they were treated, so we raised $300 to help them.
On May 23, 2000, a coalition including Christian Solidarity International and the American Anti-Slavery Group held a press conference in Washington, D.C. to begin a series of protests against the brutal regime of Sudan. Many spoke at that bipartisan event.
We have a situation that has existed too long, and it's existed too long because we haven't been loud enough about what has been going on.
Hopefully this Sudan campaign will pierce the conscience of President Clinton, will pierce the conscience of Secretary Albright.
I just wonder, how can we remain silent and not speak out against it?
What does God require? And he says to do justly.
After the press conference, which was held near the Capitol building, the participants, many of whom were from Sudan, marched down the streets of Washington, D.C.
Shame, shame, shame!
Making their way to a spot just across from the White House.
Yes. Father God, our brothers and sisters are dying for oil.
One man speaking at the press conference was a Muslim from Sudan, now living in exile, who opposes the brutal regime and what it's doing in the name of Islam.
I am a Muslim. I'm a good Muslim, by the way, and I oppose all that the government of the Sudan is doing.
Another man speaking at the press conference was Francis Buk. He knows slavery in Sudan firsthand. For 10 years, he was one.
I was hungry all the time, and they beat me all the time. Every morning they sent a lot of children to beat me. And they came to give me hard work too.
Francis escaped twice, but after he was recaptured the second time, his master threatened to kill him if he tried to flee again.
And then he beat me, and he tied me 10 days. And 4 days he doesn't give me food, just water. And he told me, this is going to be your last night. If you did not listen, you're going to be kill you.
Later, he escaped for good and eventually made it to the U.S., where he now works against slavery in Sudan.
I came here today to thank you for fighting for my brothers and sisters.
One of the striking features of the press conference on Sudan in Washington, D.C. was the involvement of the black clergy. For example, Pastor Marvin Williams of Atlanta.
I want to apologize to the people of Sudan for the inaction of the black church or black people of America who have benefited from emancipation. And we need to be the ones above all, rise up and speak out about this injustice.
And so, on behalf of thousands of Christians enslaved halfway around the world, and those persecuted for their faith in other ways, many feel that it's time for the churches of America to start supporting their persecuted fellow Christians, especially those in Sudan.
I got a message for you today. Let my people go!